Okay, so today we're going to do the dishes step by step using this beautiful guide that I just wrote down literally 5 seconds ago. Okay, so right now we are going into the living room, or not living room, the kitchen, right? Because we're going to do the dishes in the kitchen. Okay, we got our notebook. So now we're going to wash the dishes.
To make a polished, radio-ready country album. Some people in his world
Just
were
gonna set this
surprised.
here. You got a beautiful view of the sink.
In interviews from that period, it has been said that some contemporaries felt this was a significant change of direction. Some saw it as genuine artistic growth. Others felt a man who had challenged commercial Nashville was now fully inside it. Both versions carry truth.
Okay, we have it lit up in here. So now we're going to clean. Wish me luck. Okay, so the first thing on our beautiful list here is take dishes out of the sink. Let's do that. So here, the stove. That's where I'm going to put it out. Oh, by the way, it's probably backwards, but it says Jesus loves you. So, just a reminder.
The lyric asks one
Okay,
question.
let's start.
Do people actually believe in forever when they say it? In a year when American divorce rates were near record highs, that was not rhetorical. It landed hard. While these lovers keep hurting. England Dan and John Ford Foley originally recorded this in 1979. T.G. Shepherd and Anne Murray both had it before Murphy. None of those versions found the audience his did. Sometimes a song just needs the right voice at the right moment. He went on to become one of the defining voices in Western and cowboy music, but What's Forever For remains what most people connect with his country name. One crossover moment, a complicated story underneath, a question still worth answering. The next song is the exact opposite of complicated. Funny, honest, and hits like a cold beer at the end of a long week. Number 4, Jerry Reed. She got the gold mine, I got the shaft.
I was 63 when my cooking got the better of me, so I asked this little girl I was born with to be my wife.
If you have ever been through a divorce, you already understand why this hits so hard. The funniest and most painfully accurate divorce song Nashville has ever produced. Made by a man the music business never fully respected, which is a crime.
Hi. Well, she said she would, so I said I do, but I said I wouldn't if I...
By 1982, Reed was famous as the snowman from Smokey and the Bandit. A movie character first, a musician second in most people's minds. What they missed was the guitarist. First call Nashville session player, Elvis used him on records.
I just knew, I said I knew was going to screw up all of my life.
Chet Atkins called him one of the most gifted players he ever worked with. He wrote Guitar Man and U.S. Mail for Elvis. She Got the Gold Mine was written by Tim DuBois and hit #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart in September 1982.
The first few years weren't all that bad. I'll never forget the good times we had. Of course, I'm reminded every
lyric counts what the divorce took. Item by item, everything. DuBois wrote this after watching a close friend go through a brutal divorce settlement. When Reed heard it, the story goes, he said it felt like his song immediately. You can hear that recognition in every word of the recording.
When I sent her the child support, and it wasn't very long till the lust all died.
Hollywood saw a country sidekick. Nashville saw an actor who made records. He passed away in 2008. The obituaries were respectful. They should have been something more.
And I'll admit, I wasn't too surprised the day I come home and see my suitcase sitting out on the porch.
The next entry is about a song so outrageous it almost didn't make radio. The moment it did, it made perfect sense. Number 3, David Frizzell. I'm gonna hire a wino to decorate our home. She said I'm gonna hire a wino. Sit with that title. You laugh, then the song starts, and you realize this woman is not joking. She is dead serious. And that is when it becomes more than a novelty song. It becomes the most honest thing a country wife ever said to a husband who kept choosing a bar over a home. Younger brother of the legendary Lefty Frizzle. Written by Dwayne Blackwell, Warner Brothers Records, #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles Chart in August 1982. The premise? She is done asking him to stop. She is going to turn their house into a bar jukebox, bar stools, neon signs, pool table. If that is where he wants to be, she will bring it to him. Some programmers hesitated over the title. The moment stations played it, the phones lit up and would not stop. Now the audience got it instantly. The programmers were the last ones to figure it out. A novelty hit can make you a star overnight and make the industry assume that is all you are. Frizzell was more than one song. Country radio only had one moment for him. He made it count. The next artist turned one song into a gold record, a Grammy nomination, an ACM award, and a pop crossover all at once, and still ended up forgotten. Number 2, Juice Newton, The Sweetest Thing I've Ever Known.
Okay, so we got that done. And this is what we got. I don't have it.
Juice Newton was all
So,
over pop radio. Angel of the
cups
Morning, Queen of Hearts,
on this
a
area.
genuine
All
pop
utensils
star,
are
and
down
in early
here.
1982,
Plates
she
and
walked
bowls here.
straight into country music and sat down at number 1.
All cookware is right here. Okay, that was on the list, by the way. So,
Capitol Records, produced by
I already
Richard
sorted
Lennon,
it. So, yeah, the next step was to sort dishes into categories.
a warm,
Utensils and
unhurried
silverware,
love song, no drama,
plates and
just the
bowls,
certainty
cups,
of knowing where you belong.
pans and pots and skillets, all bake and cookware. So,
Our only country number 1.
now we're going to clean.
Also hit adult contemporary, 3 formats, 1 song. Newton's country roots
Got a
were
shopping
genuine.
list here.
She grew up in Virginia, loving the
Okay,
format.
so now we're going to
long
clean in
before the
that
pop hits
order.
came.
So we're going to start off with the utensils and silverware. So first we're going to get our water on. Okay.
Once Nashville decides who you are,
We're going to
that
get our
label is
water
very hard to shake. Radio
on.
formats changed. The mid-80s
And we're gonna
were
fill it up a little
unkind
bit.
to
We're gonna
artists caught between
put this in
genres.
there.
One perfect song, one perfect moment.
Yeah.
Then it passed. The country music's oldest story, and now we are at number 1. A gold record, a Grammy nomination, an ACM award, a pop crossover, and a lyric that
When
has
it
never
hot.
stopped being true. Number 1, Sylvia. Nobody. There is a moment in this song, a pause, a single word at exactly the right instant. If you have heard it once, you know that moment by heart. You never forget it. That is what separates a truly great record from everything else. Sylvia Kirby from Kokomo, Indiana, 25 years old in 1982. Written by Kai Fleming and Dennis Morgan, produced by Tom Collins, recorded at Woodland Sound Studios for RCA Records. Number 1 country, number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 5, adult contemporary, gold certified, Grammy nominated, a CM Female Vocalist of the Year, 1982. One single did all of that. A woman who sees the signs, her husband's eye wanders, he works late, the calls go silent when she answers, and every time she asks what's going on, nobody. She knows, she just can't prove it yet. And that specific kind of knowing is something almost everyone has lived through. That is why it never faded. Morgan walked into the studio while Sylvia and Collins were finishing up session work. The song hadn't even been properly demoed. They played it in the room right there. Sylvia heard it. She cut it that afternoon. One of the biggest country songs of 1982 was born because the right people were in the same room at the same time. Nobody was her only pop crossover, only Grammy nomination, only ACM win, the peak of everything. When Nashville shifted to a synth-driven pop sound in the mid-'80s, her brand didn't fit anymore. You know, not everybody.
Family Connect. And Olive Garden.
You know, not everybody is a horror movie fan. I know that's surprising, but I get it. Some people hear the word horror movie and they immediately think, nah, that's not for me. But here is the thing. There are certain horror movies that aren't just horror movies. They're great stories. They're iconic pieces of cinema, incredible filmmaking, cultural landmarks, and honestly, if you love movies at all, you need these films in your life. So today, we are going to take a look at 15 horror movies that everyone should own and watch, even if they hate horror movies. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's do this.
Claire?
I heard it.
All right, so 15 horror movies that everyone should own and watch, even if they don't consider themselves to be horror fans. Because these are movies that define the genre. They shaped pop culture, and they still hit just as hard, and they permeate the pop culture today just as much as they did back then. And yeah, I've got a stack of these over here that we're going to go through, and I'm sure I could go on and on, but we're going to start with what I consider to be 15 essential films, and we're going to start this thing at number 15 with one that's even hard for me to watch, but it is a must-own. That is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974.
No.
This movie still feels dangerous to this day, and I don't mean intense, I mean genuinely dangerous. From the moment the movie starts, there's this raw documentary feel to this movie, like you're watching something that wasn't meant to be filmed. The sound design, the
it was not
crazy,
kind
of frenetic editing, it brings you into the chaos. There's no escaping it. You feel the heat. You feel the sweat. You feel the atmosphere, the discomfort. This movie doesn't rely on gore. Matter of fact, there's not as much in this as you would think. It's actually very little. It relies on tension, discomfort, and once you see it, you never forget it. It is a big landmark in the horror genre and a film everyone should own and watch at least once. Now, next up on our list is a stone cold classic, and everybody's probably heard of this movie, even if you can't stand horror. It is 1968's Night of the Living Dead. George Romero's classic that basically invented the modern zombie genre as we know it. You have a handful of strangers who barricade themselves in an old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere while the dead start to rise and eat the living. You guys know the story. This is where the zombie trope essentially started. Black and white, made for almost nothing, but the tension is unbearable as one of the most shocking endings and one of the most crazy, just sort of gut punch deaths in horror history. The news reports in the background, they add so much realism to this. The ghouls pounding, literally death is at the door, and these people are fighting for survival. And it came out in 1968, right in the middle of the real world type chaos. This movie still hits as hard as a brick. Something about the black and white, the cold feel is a reason it's part of the Criterion collection. It comes in at number 14. Now at number 13, we have one of my all-time favorites that encapsulates the 80s horror, practical effects, everything.
We got
in one
utensils
film.
done. Now
It is
we're gonna go
1985's
to silverware.
Now, this is pure 80s joy with fans in here because you have Charlie Brewster who realizes his slick new neighbor is in fact a vampire, and he drags in Peter Vincent, a washed up late night horror host. So you have all kinds of 80s things going on here. It's set in a suburban neighborhood. You have late night horror hosts. You've got vampires. You've got teenagers, high school seniors trying to get laid. You've got everything, and they got to try to take this vampire down. Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge is awesome in this, completely magnetic, so much charisma. The nightclub scene where he seduces Amy, the dance floor, sexy, hypnotic, fun, incredible practical effects, a great mix of funny, scary, a little sex appeal in this thing, dripping with perfect 80s video store nostalgia. If you grew up flipping channels, looking for horror on cable, or just looking for something to watch that felt very much of your time, this one feels like coming home. It is a time capsule of a movie. It is so much fun today. You have to have it. You have to check it out. It's a must-own. Now, at number 12, we have one that needs no introduction, even to a lot of the younger crowd who might be watching this. It's 1996's Scream. This is Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson in here, and he took everything that we loved about horror movies, slasher films, and literally flipped the script. That opening phone call with Drew Barrymore, the shock of seeing her get taken out early on in the film when you think she's going to be the star. It is one of the most tension-filled sequences there at the beginning ever, one of the best openings in horror history. Then later, Randy drops the rules of the horror. This is really the first time that
so we got our
horror
first
goes mainstream, though,
things done, and that was
Wes Craven's
utensils and
Nightmare
silverware.
kind of did
So
it
now we're
first.
gonna do
It's a
plates and
test
bowls.
run. He gives you the
So I'm
whole
emptying
everything
out
you
the
know
water,
about horror, the old morality tale,
just
no
for the
sex,
simple fact
the no drugs,
that I'm
the
emptying
no
out the
drinking,
water,
never
okay?
say
But
out,
you're just not.
right back. All of those kind of tropes are in here and outlined for the first time in the audience. Of course, they immediately start breaking them. It's meta, it's hilarious, it's genuinely scary. This one sort of revived the whole slasher genre, still going strong. Scream. Now, putting my money where my mouth is on making sure you own these movies, watch them at least once, even if they're not your favorite, even if they're not your thing. The next one is a perfect example of that for me. It is 1973's The Exorcist. This movie doesn't play around. This movie is very hard for me to watch. It's based off of a true story. A lot of people don't know that. You've got a young girl, Reagan, who ends up starting to show terrifying changes. I'm sure you've seen this parody many of times. She turns into something genuinely evil because of what's inside of her. She's basically possessed by a demon. You've got the sound design in this, the practical effects, the head spinning, vomiting pea soup, levitating. The dialogue in this hits way too hard so many times, especially with a child having to play this part. The layered demonic voices are completely freaky. William Friedkin, one of the great directors of our time, behind the wheel here. Even if you're not religious, this thing hits you with pure weight and dread, and it lingers. It has that fight between good and evil. It's hard to watch, go back and forth, but The Exorcist. Now, coming up next is another one that's based, at least loosely, on a true story. It is 1978's The Amityville Horror. And this is an icon of haunted house films. Based on a true story, you can take it with a grain of salt. You can decide how much of it you believe or don't believe. But man,
Okay, as always, you always forget something, and we forgot something.
subtle things. The atmosphere is so heavy. You've got a young family that moves into this house where this tragedy actually did happen. All of these murders, Ronald DeFeo, all of those kind of tropes that you get in a horror movie with a haunted house kind of started here in a lot of ways with Amityville Horror, with people being killed in the house, hearing voices. Let's get out. There's so many things in this movie that work together so subtly to create what is really a perfect haunted house in the perfect horror atmosphere. It's sort of like horror comfort food with a real creepy atmospheric edge to it, and those quiet moments, that subtlety in the house makes the big moments hit even harder. Josh Brolin in here is amazing, and you gotta have Amityville Horror in your collection. Now, coming in at number 9, we go to 1980 and John Carpenter's great ghost story, The Fog. I mean, The Fog can make so many lists because it's such a great horror film. And the cast is incredible. You've got Jamie Lee Curtis in here. You've got Tom Atkins in here. You've got Adrienne Barbeau. The cast is incredible. The story, the atmosphere. John Carpenter knew how to do atmosphere very, very well. You've got a sleepy coastal town of Antonio Bay that gets swallowed up by this thick, glowing fog 100 years after a horrible crime, and inside the fog are vengeful ghosts who are like sailors. I don't want to give everything away in case you haven't seen it.
Now we're going to just let it sit for a minute. Okay?
And the opening
just going to let it sit
in this movie
for at least a minute.
To let you know exactly what you
are
in for.
Okay, so I also have 2 of these pans right here, and so I'm going to clean those 2 here. As soon as I'm done with the ones on the stove. Okay, just wanted to put that out there.
Now, number 8 is a movie that is a Spielberg movie that really isn't a Spielberg movie, but definitely is a Spielberg movie. I'm talking 1982's Poltergeist. Poltergeist is produced by Steven Spielberg, and it was mostly directed by Steven Spielberg. He was literally there on set, calling action and cut many times, directing many scenes. But it has a raw edge to it because of the actual director, Toby Hooper. And you've got a normal suburban family that moves into a normal neighborhood, and then creepy things start to happen, and it all starts with television static, and then the other side starts pulling toys and people, their land, through here. A clown doll coming to life, the tree attacking from outside, coming to life, stormy rain, the pool scene, all of the real life sort of drama and misfortune that went along with this film. It's funny one minute, terrifying the next minute, a great family horror, haunted house film, absolute peak, must-own, incredible film. This is one that everyone should own, everyone should watch as a piece of history. Poltergeist.
When we rinse, we do cold. Cold water.
Now, at number 7, we have 1981's American Werewolf
do the same
in
thing
London.
with
This was directed by John Landis, but this one is very famous for another reason. This has the best practical effect werewolf transformation maybe ever put to screen. Particularly at that time, it helped create a whole new genre of awards in the Oscars because of the transformation in this film. It is very famous. It's talked about at Universal Studios Orlando to this day because of the iconic nature of that. But you've got 2 backpackers who are attacked on the moors, and one starts turning into a werewolf. Those Rick Baker effects, though, they still show in this movie. Because today, it would be CGI, and it would never look as good as this. The nightmare sequences, there's dark humor in here. The soundtrack, it has kind of got dark comedy, scares, everything, but it is an icon of practical effects breakthroughs. It is something everyone should see at least once, own, just so that you can understand, kind of like a lot of these other movies, if there's references in pop culture to this, you need to check this out. It's the same thing with There, Here. It is just so ubiquitous. It's something that you can't be unawares about, and you will do yourself a favor if you own it. Now, number 6 is a Stephen King book done by the great Stanley Kubrick. No question, you must own and watch The Shining from 1980. This is Kubrick's slow burn classic. I am a student of this film, how it was shot, how it was written,
everything about it. I know the lenses that were used, because this film is so important in what it does, and it kind of led the way for more and more Stephen King adaptations, even though you had Carrie before this. A family holds up in the empty Overlook Hotel for the winter, and the isolation and the demonic forces in the hotel do all the rest of the heavy lifting. The long tracking shots, the hallways, the hotel coming alive, driving him crazy. Jack Nicholson with a great performance in here. This is another one you have to know. The Here's Johnny. There's so many references that are still such a part of our culture today in these movies that even if you don't like horror films, these are things that you want to see the context of, watch, own,
Chucky and
and
Tiff
this is towards the
forever.
top of the list. The
Ronnie
Shining.
got that for me because he's
Now at number
awesome.
5, we have a John
He got himself
Carpenter,
one, too.
Kurt Russell classic that is the icon of practical effects. It is 1982's The Thing. Unquestioned, must own, maybe the best horror movie ever made, maybe the best sci-fi movie ever made. You could make an argument on both. But John Carpenter in Antarctica, though they were really on location in freezing areas, you have an alien that can perfectly imitate anything it touches, down to its taste buds, its memories, everything. And the paranoia is super thick in this because the whole group of people, the guys are stuck in the middle of nowhere. It's supposed to be Antarctica, but really they got these great performances because they stuck these guys in a snowy area in the middle of nowhere where they had to get to and from set on snowmobiles. So it is very, very realistic. It is all captured. The cold, the paranoia, and the practical effects kick in. Bodies changing, tentacles, screaming, everything. It is unmatched. And every time you watch it, you're still trying to figure out who is human. You're trying to put together clues that you missed. Just an absolute classic that wasn't appreciated in its time. We've come to understand how great of a film it is today. You will too. It is a must-own, must-watch thing. Now, at number 4, we go to Steven Spielberg again with the movie that coined the term blockbuster. It is Jaws. And yes, it counts. And Jaws is one of the greatest films ever made, regardless of genre. But it is literally the movie that invented the summer blockbuster. Really, mostly coined the term. And it ruined beaches and oceans for a lot of people for generations. It still hits today. The John Williams score alone could strike fear into the heart. Building everything on a shark that you barely see. Great performances, USS Indianapolis speech. Spielberg's mastery of tension is off the charts. You don't even need to love horror. You don't even need to like horror to love this movie. It is just absolute perfect cinema. Jaws, a must-own, must-watch again
Okay.
and again. It comes in.
We just got done with
Now, at number 3, we have
Cups.
one that shifts
Now we're going
on
to
again,
bowls
but
and
with
plates.
a director who has been
So,
on this list already.
going to
It's
clean.
1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street by Wes Craven. And look, this one came out when I was a little kid. This was the first horror movie I remember seeing. Scared me to death then, but it is so well done, so original. Wes Craven literally brought dream logic to one of the coolest villains ever, who is iconic. You have Freddy Krueger is still known today, 40 plus years later. You need to know where he came from. Even if you don't like horror, educate yourself on this, and even if you never watch it again. This movie has wisecracking Freddy Krueger who pulls kids into nightmares and kills them with his bladed glove.
Yeah, I
but
know.
he
Sometimes
really
I
likes
forget
to
to
toy
turn
with
off
them.
the
It's a
water.
whole
That's
different
fine.
kind of concept, and then the dream logic
Sometimes
that
we're
you see
doing
come
this,
to
see,
life,
that's
where you
fine.
want to run, you can't run. All those things that have happened in your nightmares and in your dreams play out in the movie, and the whole thing is just so damn creative. That is why Freddy Krueger and A Nightmare on Elm Street are still so popular all these years later. If you haven't seen it, or it's been a long time, this is one to own, check out, and at least don't get lost in conversation when people reference this movie. You gotta have A Nightmare on Elm Street. And before I get to the top two, you see the shirt that I'm wearing. I just want to throw out the obvious. The first place you need to start, if you've never seen them, you need to start with the Universal Classic Monsters. We're talking Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula. Those should just be in everyone's library. I don't put them in here because a lot of younger viewers who might not have gotten into horror, might be trying to get into horror, they might think these are old and whatever, but they are sort of the foundations of horror, and they're very G-rated by today's standards, so they're not the kind of horror that would be hard for anyone to watch, but they are foundational, and you should have them. So, got a shout out to the Universal Classic Monsters. All right, coming in at number 2, I'm going to pick one movie to represent an entire franchise. And even though I think you should own the whole franchise, it's 1984's Friday the 13th, the final chapter. And the reason I picked this to represent the entire franchise is because I think it has all the best elements of the franchise rolled into one movie. If you wanted to have a sampling of the entire franchise, it's contained in this one film. It nails everything the franchise does best. You've got peak Jason in here at Camp Crystal Lake. Incredible practical effects and practical kills. You've got Tom Savini in here who's a master of that. Memorable characters, including Corey Feldman. You've got the Doublemint twins in here. You've got Crispin Glover. It is a great cast, and you've got that fun mix of slasher exploitation with pretty college kids hooking up, skinny dipping, and then you have the slasher morality tale at the center of this. The whole series has wild charm. It's got so much nostalgia, but part 4 feels like the sweet spot. If you knew nothing about this entire franchise, you could watch this movie and get a piece of it all. And while I recommend the whole franchise, if you're only going to own and watch one, believe it or not, it's not the original. This one represents the entire franchise the best. So part 4, the final chapter, comes in at number 2. And then at number 1, there's really no question on this. It's 1978's Halloween by John Carpenter. This is the one that started it all for many of us. Halloween, 1978, slasher, Michael Myers, the Boogeyman. John Carpenter made this movie for almost nothing and created perfection. Michael Myers as the silent, evil shape, the embodiment of evil, if you will. Laurie Strode fighting back, the good versus the evil, the light versus the dark, that simple piano score that gives us goosebumps, the tension that never lets up. It invented so many rules of the slasher genre, and to talk about it more, the more you talk about it, really, the more it comes to life. It has all the things.
These
again,
are being thrown away because they got my strips in them. So,
pretty teenagers and college kids hooking up, the nudity, and immediately
this goes
being
with it.
punished for drinking, for sex,
that
for
bottom
drugs.
one,
All
being
the
thrown
stuff
away
that
too.
Scream
No,
kind
all
of
this is gonna be
poked fun
thrown
at
away.
later. It's all in here. It invented so many of those rules. It invented the blueprint in so many ways. It still feels alive because of that. It is iconic. It goes hand in hand with the season of Halloween. So even if you don't like horror, you have to own, watch, and respect Halloween from 1978. If there's only one horror movie in your collection, first, shame on you. Second, it's got to be Halloween. If you don't consider Jaws to be a straight up horror, everyone should own Jaws. If not, it's Halloween. And that's my opinion. So,
Yeah, a lot of people don't think Jaws is a horror movie. It is.
yeah, like me.
It is a natural horror movie. That's what they call it. Where nature goes crazy and causes fear. It's a horror movie. It's a horror movie that can actually freaking happen. Shark can start attacking you. It happened before.
Bret Hart has had issues with Goldberg for years, but now with talks of Goldberg facing a life sentence.
Goldberg facing a life sentence behind there. This is false.
Bret Hart has had issues with Goldberg for years.
This is false.
Native skincare.
Are you freaking serious?
Bret Hart has had issues with Goldberg for years, but now with talks of Goldberg facing a life sentence, Bret has a lot to say. From accusing him of ending his career.
When Bill Goldberg kicked me in the head and ended my career, it was such a lousy way to
To questioning his character, Bret is revealing some dark things about Goldberg, and it all goes back to one moment that changed everything. Let me break it down. One kick away. On December 19th, 1999, Bret Hart walked into the MCI Center in Washington, D.C. as the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Bill Goldberg was the challenger. Roddy Piper was the special guest referee. And one of the last things Hart told Goldberg before they walked to the ring was simple: don't hurt me. That night, during the main event of Starrcade, Goldberg threw a thrust kick that was supposed to land somewhere around Hart's midsection or chest. It didn't. The kick sailed high and connected flush under Hart's chin, snapping his head back. Hart said he saw stars immediately. He was disoriented, barely able to stand, but the match kept going. Piper rang the bell in a confused finish, where Hart technically won via the sharpshooter, but Hart was done. He just didn't know it yet. The thing about that night is that it wasn't just one bad moment. Hart later said he believed he suffered multiple concussions during the match, one possibly from a botched spot where Goldberg failed to properly hold his foot during a figure-4 leg lock around the ring post, which caused Hart's head to slam hard into the mat. Then came the kick, and then Hart kept wrestling. Not just that night, he wrestled more matches after Starrcade, including one against Kevin Nash, making the damage worse each time before anyone realized how bad it actually was.
When Bill Goldberg
Gotta
kicked me
restart
in the
water
head
cold.
and ended my career, it was such a lousy way to go.
Hart said he went home after the injury, and it took him a full year to find out his career was over. His doctors told him he could never wrestle again. And right around that time, WCW fired him.
And, it took me a year.
Why not say freaking liar?
Addie,
We're gonna
Sparkle
restart.
Terrace Square.
Hot water.
See what scholarships you may qualify for. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer.
My brother, he's violent, unafraid, ugly.
The killer's identity was a mystery until 2001 when officials announced they arrested Gary Ridgway.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at instances in which serial killers were suspected of committing crimes before they were officially identified and caught.
But ultimately what happened is he really started to break down psychologically.
David Berkowitz. The Son of Sam terrorized New York between 1976 and 77, killing 6 people and wounding another 7.
And it's something that we all have to worry about.
What's your wife saying?
She wouldn't even come after me.
The entire city was placed on high alert, and a massive manhunt was underway to catch the random shooter. And he was caught thanks to the suspicions of one Cecilia Davis. Davis saw a police officer ticketing a car and soon spotted a man walking from that direction.
A woman who says she saw police officers ticket Berkowitz's car the night of the last murder after hearing shots and being approached by a man with a dark object in his hand.
The man deeply troubled her as he was carrying a dark object and seemed to be studying her. Soon after arriving home, she heard gunshots. Rightfully fearing that the man was dangerous, Davis contacted the police. They identified the ticketed car as belonging to one David Berkowitz. And with that, the Son of Sam was finally identified and caught.
It was just a break from reality. Thought I was doing something to appease the devil. I'm sorry for it.
Anthony Solo, also going by the Cleveland Strangler and the Imperial Avenue Murderer. Anthony Solo killed at least 11 victims between 2007 and 2009.
Anthony Sowell would lure his victims in with conversation and what I call props.
he was finally captured thanks to a woman named Latundra Billups, who told the police that Sowell had sexually assaulted her. When Sowell was arrested, police found human remains littered throughout his house and buried on his property.
It appears that this man had a insatiable appetite that he had to fill.
5 of the bodies have been identified as women.
But suspicions had been raised before this, particularly from one Lori Frazier. Frazier was a partner of Sowell's and she lived with him for some time. She reportedly smelled decaying bodies in the house, but Sowell told her the smell was coming from a nearby sausage shop.
The awful odor on Imperial Avenue brought health inspectors back again that summer. They blamed Ray's Sausage, who sits right next door to Sowell.
Frazier escaped with her life, but her intuition would prove tragically correct. Andre Chikatilo, a true monster. Andre Chikatilo is responsible for at least 52 murders between 1978 and 1990.
Some of the bodies were still fresh, which gave us a broader picture of the injuries and the killer's behavior at the site of crime.
Before he was caught, Chikatilo was the subject of a psychological profile done by Dr. Alexander Bukanovsky. It said he would be between 45 and 50. By 1985, around the time the profile was made, Chikatilo was 49. It said he had a difficult childhood. Chikatilo was born in a famine and often starved.
Young Andre realized that he was not like the other boys in the youth league.
He never fit in very well, and he felt embarrassed and humiliated generally.
It said he was well educated. He graduated from Rostov University. It said he traveled a lot. He was a factory supply clerk and traveled widely.
A lot of the bodies were found near transportation points, bus stations, train stations in particular, which indicated that the killer, whoever he was somebody who used the Soviet transportation system extensively.
It said he was married with children. Chikatilo had been married since 1963 and had 2 children. Basically, Bukanovsky had him to a T. Robert Hansen. A very unique serial killer, Robert Hansen would abduct women, often sex workers, and take them to the Alaskan wilderness.
And it said, this is the greatest mass murder in the history of Alaska. Well, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I had no idea.
It is then believed that he hunted these women like game, often tracking them with a knife and a semi-automatic rifle. One girl named Cindy Paulson escaped from Hansen, and a country grabber picked her up and called the police.
We found her in handcuffs with very little clothes on. She was real credible. She was very scared, she was very frightened, and she told us her story.
They questioned Hansen about his involvement in the kidnapping, but his gentle personality convinced them of his innocence. The FBI was then brought in, and like Andre Chikatilo, they made a profile that perfectly matched Hansen. Realizing they had the right guy all along, police arrested Hansen again, and he confessed to the crimes.
Finally, it was time to confess. Time for Hansen to cut a deal. Hansen said he would confess to the murders that could be proven, as long as the trial was given no publicity and that his family be left alone.
Charles Cullen. While working as a nurse in New Jersey, Charles Cullen took the lives of dozens, possibly even hundreds of patients by making them overdose.
In Cullen's case, all of his victims were patients assigned to hospital units where he worked as a nurse.
Despite his high body count, Cullen wasn't nearly as smooth as he may have believed. Several co-workers suspected that he was killing patients, and even brought it up to the local district attorney, but the case was dismissed.
He was the main suspect for poisoning random bags of saline. If you talk to the investigators there, they'll tell you, Cullen was our man, we knew he was dirty. They couldn't prove anything. It's all circumstantial. They fire him. He moved on.
Other officials were warned by the New Jersey Poison Information and Education System that a doctor was likely killing patients. Finally, a co-worker named Amy Loughran contacted the authorities over Cullen's suspicious behavior, and they convinced Loughran to talk to Cullen while wearing a wire.
Were you angry?
I was sad for my patients. I was, so many things were going through my mind. I was sad I didn't see it. I felt betrayed by my own intuition.
The conversation contained enough evidence to have Cullen arrested, and he was given 18 life sentences. Paul Bernardo. When it comes to Canadian criminals, it doesn't get much more notorious than Paul Bernardo.
There never was before and never was since such a string of attacks like that.
People were scared stiff for a very long time.
Bernardo committed a series of sexual assaults and later killed 3 people with his wife, Carla Homolka, including Homolka's younger sister, Tammy. However, many people held theories about Bernardo long before he was captured. The police questioned Bernardo multiple times in relation to his possible involvement in both the murders and the sexual assaults, and even took DNA samples.
I asked Bernardo to provide samples of his hair and saliva and blood, gave them up right away. By doing this is my opinion, he was trying to deflect any suspicion on himself by being so cooperative.
These samples would later be used to take him down. Meanwhile, people who knew Bernardo reported him to the police, including John Motile, an acquaintance, and Tina Smyrnis, the wife of one of Bernardo's friends. Smyrnis' tip came before Bernardo had killed anyone.
What was certain, however, was that together, Bernardo and Homolka were a deadly duo.
Mosey to the kitchen for an unrivaled glass of a blissful wine full of nuanced flavor. Savor the moment with Sable Blanc, another amazing wine made right here in the heart of Missouri.
Granger knows that if you're a school custodian, cleanliness is your top priority. That's why you can rely on Granger for a range of cleaning products and equipment, from disinfectants to floor scrubbers. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
You can count on Cox Health for the medical expertise you trust when it matters most. Cox Health.
What do we do?
My survivors.
Jeffrey Dahmer. It seems inconceivable that Jeffrey Dahmer was able to kill and dismember so many people in his small Milwaukee apartment.
Without detection, 31-year-old Jeffrey Dahmer had killed 17 young men across a 13-year period.
But one neighbor was highly suspicious of Dahmer, and her name was Glenda Cleveland. Cleveland was one of many neighbors who reported rotting smells coming from Dahmer's apartment. But she took the complaints one step further by actually speaking with the authorities.
When I say what I have to say and I know it to be true, I don't feel that I have to constantly keep repeating myself. And I think that can be said for everyone.
Cleveland saw a victim named Conrad Synthosompone running from their apartment building and attempted to report her suspicions to the police, but they ignored her. She also contacted the FBI in a desperate attempt to have someone listen, but they too ignored her warnings. Dahmer would claim 4 more victims before he was captured on the night of July 22, 1991.
First day it was local television, second day national television, by the third day it was international television.
They were able to show video of these items coming out of the front door of this apartment building that's not usual.
John Wayne Gacy. One of the most active serial killers in American history, the killer clown took at least 33 lives throughout the 1970s, burying 26 of them in the crawl space of his Chicago home.
He would become one of the most prolific serial killers in American history.
Gacy's legendary crime spree finally came to an end thanks to the work of Police Chief Joseph Kozenzak. A boy named Robert Peast had gone missing after speaking to a contractor. This contractor was identified as John Wayne Gacy, whom Kozenzak learned had a serious criminal record.
They supplied us with some information pertaining to his telephone number, and through the phone number we were able to determine his full name and address. And that's the first time we ever view the name John Wayne Gacy.
He launched an investigation into Gacy and even had him tailed by police officers. While searching Gacy's home, one officer noticed a rotting smell coming from the heating duct. They later explored the crawl space and found numerous bodies, and the rest is history.
The mounting evidence convinced detectives that they should begin digging in the crawl space under Gacy's house.
Ted Bundy. Often regarded as a remorseless psychopath, Ted Bundy claimed at least 20 lives throughout the 1970s.
He was a master predator. It was as well planned as military action.
He's become the most infamous serial killer in American history.
Bundy's infamous killing spree began in the Pacific Northwest in 1974, where he killed 8 and left another with permanent brain damage. He then moved east to Utah, leaving behind a trail of bodies and some dumbfounded authorities.
He went to Utah, and girls started disappearing in Salt Lake City suburbs around there, much in the same way that girls had been disappearing in Washington State.
However, they were not without hope. Investigators compiled a computerized database, and Ted Bundy's name continuously appeared as a potential suspect. In fact, Bundy was considered one of the prime suspects in the murder spree when he was arrested in Utah in 1975.
An off-duty Utah State police officer saw him prowling around the neighborhood in a Volkswagen, stopped him, they charged him with possession of burglary tools, were able to use his photograph, the photographic lineup, and Carol Durange was able to pick him out.
Unfortunately, Bundy would escape from prison and kill again before he was apprehended for good in 1978. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Gary Ridgway. While names like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer have become enduring artifacts of American culture, most people ignore Gary Ridgway, aka the Green River Killer.
We started putting him under surveillance, and sure enough, he's still out cruising. He's still out there, obviously watching girls working the street, because we were watching him watch them.
This, despite the fact that Ridgway is the second most prolific killer in American history, having been convicted of 49 murders. Ridgway was finally apprehended on November 30th, 2001, but he'd been a primary suspect for nearly 20 years. Ridgway was arrested for prostitution in 1982 and was quickly suspected of being the Green River Killer.
We had a very strong circumstantial case against Gary Ridgway in 1987. What we didn't have was any physical evidence to substantiate the circumstances.
He was even given a polygraph test and was forced to provide hair and saliva samples. It was these very samples that took down Ridgway in 2001, as they were finally tested for DNA and matched what was found on the victims.
And Mr. Ridgway, is it your desire to plead guilty to the 48 charges of aggravated murder in the first degree because you believe that you are guilty of each of those offenses?
Yes.
Do you think you would have caught these red flags? Let us know in the comments below.
Sometimes a song starts as a joke.
Shut.
Sometimes a song starts as a joke. A studio prank, a quick laugh, and ends up everywhere. Today, we're counting down 10 hits nobody was supposed to take seriously, until the whole world did. Songs written in minutes, meant to mock pop music, but somehow became pop legends. Number 10, Rock Me Amadeus, Falco. In mid-80s Vienna, the idea of a German-language rap pop song about Mozart sounded ridiculous. Falco and his team leaned into that. They imagined Mozart as the first wild rock star, talented, arrogant, partying his way through high society, and turned that idea into Rock Me Amadeus, a track that blended rap, rock, and classical touches into something completely off the wall. Falco's producer worried it was too strange even for European radio. The lyrics were packed with references to wigs, debts, and aristocratic scandals, all delivered in German over a beat that belonged on a dance floor. It was closer to a history lesson on sugar than a typical pop song. And yet, it worked. Rock Me Amadeus hit #1 in the US, the UK, and across Europe, making Falco the only artist ever to top the US charts with a German-language
I've been doing this for almost an
single.
hour. What the heck?
Just playing with history, not trying to make it. But by turning Mozart into a pop icon, he accidentally did both. Number 9. You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, Bachman-Turner Overdrive. This track was never meant to leave the studio. Randy Bachman recorded You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet as a private joke for his brother Gary, who the famous baby line was him deliberately exaggerating that speech pattern just to make his brother laugh. It was done in one rough take, off-key in places, full of mistakes, meant to stay buried on it. When the band finished their album and the label said something was missing, they reluctantly played this joke song. The label heard magic. They insisted it go on the record. Against the band's wishes, it became the single. And then it took off straight to #1 in the US and Canada, selling millions and becoming BTO's signature song. Randy later joked that the biggest song of his life was the one he never wanted anyone to hear. What started as brotherly teasing turned into a stadium chant. Sometimes you don't carefully craft your legacy. You stutter into it by accident. Number 8, I Can't Drive 55, Sammy Hagar.
Hey, get out of here. I'm driving home. Come on, I'm out. I'm gone. I'm out of here.
Most people get a speeding ticket and grumble about it. Sammy Hagar wrote a hit. After being pulled over in upstate New York for driving 62 in a 55 zone, he was so annoyed he scribbled the phrase, I can't drive 55, on a napkin in his hotel room and built a song around it. It started as a joke, a loud sarcastic protest against speed limits and rules. But the hook was, I Can't Drive 55 became his biggest solo hit, reaching the top 30 on the Billboard charts and turning him into the Red Rocker fans know today. The video, full of fast cars, sunglasses, and pure 80s attitude, lived on MTV in heavy rotation. The funny twist? Not long after Hagar joined Van Halen, became a millionaire, and could afford to drive as fast as he wanted on tracks and private roads. A ticket that should have ruined his day instead handed him a career-defining anthem. Number 7, Axel F. Crazy Frog. If the internet had a theme song in the early 2000s, this might have been it. And it all started with a joke ringtone. In 2003, a Swedish sound designer named Daniel Malmedal recorded himself making ridiculous brr-ding-ding-ding engine noises just to imitate a two-stroke motor. He shared it online for fun, and somehow it spread everywhere, bouncing around early meme sites and forums long before social media looked anything like it does today. A few producers grabbed that silly audio, glued it to a remix of the Beverly Hills Cop theme, Axel F., and gave it a mascot, Crazy Frog, a naked blue cartoon riding an invisible motorcycle. It was supposed to be nonsense. It was nonsense. Then it hit number 1 across much of Europe, sold millions, and took over music TV with a video you either laughed
One
at
more.
or absolutely
This is the
couldn't
pot
stand.
that I had you sitting on.
Parents hated it. Kids memorized every sound. Critics called it the end of music, while the rest of us could hear it blaring from 3 streets away. And yet, looking back, that's exactly why it mattered. The little frog that annoyed the world became one of the internet's first true global memes. Proof that even pure nonsense can go platinum if it's catchy enough, and that sometimes the most annoying sound in the world is the one people never forget. Now,
always running out of liquid detergent? That's why I switched to Tide Power Bonds. They're formulated to tackle the toughest stains and odors. Tide
Just
ingredients
burning
are
myself, bro.
concentrated for a powerful all-in-one clean. Skip those costly pre-treaters. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide.
No. Wait. What do you want me to do? Just look down. All right, just look at me. Look what I'm doing. Yeah. All right, see the way I'm.
Managing schizophrenia with daily pills is a constant reminder.
Number 6, My Ding-a-Ling, Chuck Berry.
When I was a little bitty boy, my grandmother bought me a cute little...
Even one of rock and roll's founding fathers couldn't resist a dirty joke. My Ding-a-Ling was a novelty tune Chuck Berry had been messing around with on stage for years. It was silly, childish, full of double meanings, and built for audience shoutbacks. The musical equivalent of a cheeky grin.
All right, girls have the first word. The girls say, my, and the boys say, ding-a-ling. You see? That's right.
Then he recorded it live in London. The crowd sang along louder than anyone expected, leaning hard into the innuendo. That performance captured the song's true power, not as a serious track, but as a shared joke between Berry and the audience.
She told me it was my ding-a-ling-a-ling, oh my.
To almost everyone's surprise, it went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Chuck Berry's only chart-topping single.
This is only number 1.
Critics rolled their eyes and wondered how the man who gave us Johnny B. Good could take this to the top. Barry didn't seem bothered. After decades of shaping rock music, he finally had a hit that didn't ask to be analyzed. Just sung and laughed along with.
Took me to Sunday school. They tried to teach me the golden rule.
In its own way, that might have been his most rebellious move.
You must be playing with your own big
Number 5. Surfing Bird, the Trash Man. This story starts with pure chaos. In 1963, a Minnesota garage band called the Trash Men mashed together 2 R&B songs, Papa Momo and The Bird's the Word during a live show. They hadn't rehearsed it, hadn't planned it. They just shouted nonsense, sped everything up, and turned a goofy stage experiment into something wild. When they took that idea into the studio, the result sounded like a surf song having a nervous breakdown. Drums crashing, vocals screaming, lyrics repeating until it felt like the record itself was losing its mind. But radio stations loved it. Surfin' Bird climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the strangest hits of the 60s, blasting out of jukeboxes in an era otherwise ruled by clean-cut pop.
I made the face for the bird myself.
The Trashmen never thought they'd made a masterpiece. They were just trying to hype up a crowd. Yet decades later, the song keeps coming back. In Full Metal Jacket, Family Guy, and endless punk covers, shouted by new generations who have no idea it began as a chaotic mashup in a small Minneapolis club. Number 4, Werewolves of London, Warren Zevon. Sometimes genius hides in a joke, or in this case, a howl. Warren Zevon didn't mean for Werewolves of London to exist. It was born during a drinking session with his buddies Waddy Wachtel and Leroy Marinell, when someone jokingly said, "You should write a song about werewolves walking around London." They laughed, then actually did it. The lyrics were nonsense, the piano riff simple and repetitive, and Zevon thought it was too silly for his serious songwriting reputation. He was known for dark, clever songs, not cartoon monsters and Chinese food in Soho. But his label loved it. Released in 1978, it howled its way to number 21 on Billboard, and that goofy ah-ooh became one of rock's most recognizable sounds. Even Zevon's friend Jackson Browne couldn't believe it worked. He called it a novelty hit from a serious poet. Musicians later sampled and referenced it for years. It popped up in movies like The Color of Money and in countless TV shows and commercials. And Kid Rock famously blended its riff into All Summer Long.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long.
Warren once said, "People think I was kidding. Maybe I was. But it bought me a house."
Werewolves of London again.
Okay, we have officially washed all the dishes. It has been an hour and 2 minutes. Now we gotta put all the dishes up.
The whole world remembers.
As says,
Number
as
3,
printed,
The Ballroom Blitz. Sweet.
put away. So that's what we're gonna
Some songs
do now.
start with a fantasy. This one started with a disaster. In 1973, glam rock
This
band
does
Sweet
not go
played a
anywhere
rowdy
because
show
it
in
goes back
Scotland
under my
that went
grandparents, so I'm
completely
just
off
gonna
the
leave
rails.
this out
The
over
crowd
here on the
threw
table.
bottles, chaos broke out, and the band had
And
to
that's
leave
what I'm
the
gonna use to
stage
put my phone back
mid-set.
on. No, I take it back. I'm gonna use touchscreen. Okay, this
Instead
needs
of
to be put
forgetting
up
it,
first.
they turned the chaos into The Ballroom Blitz. The song is a dramatized cartoon version of the night. The man in the back, the girl in the corner, and a room on the edge of exploding. It took a scary moment and exaggerated it into a fun, over-the-top rock story with huge drums, shout-along vocals, and a chorus built for trouble. It hit the top 5 in several countries and became one of glam rock's defining anthems. Years later, when Wayne's World brought it back to a new audience, it proved just how durable that energy was. Sweet took a night they probably wanted to forget and turned it into the moment the world remembers them for. Number 2, The Bad Touch, Bloodhound Gang. In the late 90s, The Bad Touch was everywhere. Clubs, radio, music, TV. But at its core, it started as a dirty parody, fun of how obsessed pop music had become with sex. So they wrote a song stuffed with ridiculous metaphors, over-the-top pickup lines, and a beat that felt like a cartoon version of Euroclub music. They didn't expect much. Maybe some laughs, maybe a cult following. Instead, it exploded internationally, hitting #1 in several European countries and staying on charts for months. The Discovery Channel line became instantly quotable, repeated by teenagers who didn't always understand what they were saying. Even with bands from MTV Asia and some radio stations, the single sold over 1 million copies. Their joke about shallow pop ended up becoming one of the most successful shallow pop songs ever released. They pointed at the machine, laughed, and the machine turned their joke into a career highlight. Number 1, Walk Like an Egyptian, The Bangles. The top spot goes to a song the band themselves didn't really want. Writer Liam Sternberg came up with Walk Like an Egyptian after watching people on a ferry trying to keep their balance, arms out at odd angles that reminded him of ancient Egyptian drawings. It was meant as a light oddball idea, and several artists passed on it before it reached the Bangles. They weren't convinced. Each member sang a different verse because nobody was eager to take ownership of it, and drummer Debbie Peterson didn't even get a lead part. The track used drum machines instead, which caused tension in the band. To them, it felt like a novelty song, not a serious reflection of who they were. Listeners thought otherwise. Walk Like an Egyptian went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, became the biggest American single of 1987, and turned into a full-blown craze. Eyeliner, hand gestures, dance moves, the works. Susanna Hoffs later admitted they thought it was kind of dumb, but it ended up defining their image for millions of people. The song they hesitated to claim became the one the world never forgot.
Walk like an Egyptian.
So there you have it. 10 songs that started as jokes and ended up becoming part of music history. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe, and...
Come for the...
We all know there are some songs you just don't touch, because they're already perfect. But some artists dared to reinvent them anyway, and the results were an absolute train wreck. Today, we're counting down 13 rock classic covers that should have never seen the light of day. So bad, in fact, that even the original creators ended up hating them. And trust me, once you hear them, you'll understand exactly why. Let's dive in. Number 13, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. Stairway to Heaven is the holy grail of classic rock. Released by Led Zeppelin in 1971 as an 8-minute progressive masterpiece written by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, its cryptic lyrics and crescendo structure turned it into a near-spiritual experience for rock fans everywhere. That's why, when Dolly Parton decided to cover it in 2002, complete with banjos and a gospel choir, many felt she'd crossed the line. While he never said it outright,
Are you kidding me?
Jimmy Page hinted that Dolly had tamed the track, stripping away its mystical edge. Robert Plant was more diplomatic, be it still through a subtle jab, saying, "There are some songs that don't need a second voice to fly." Even though Parton asked for permission and insisted she did it out of pure respect, the result split the audience down the middle. Some praised her boldness, while others saw it as nothing short of musical sacrilege. Number 12, Light My Fire by The Doors. Light My Fire, released in 1967, was the Doors' first major breakthrough. With its haunting organ intro, psychedelic solos, and Jim Morrison's unmistakable vocals, the track became a symbol of freedom and rebellion, one of the definitive anthems of the hippie movement. Decades later, in 2002, British singer Will Young, fresh off the reality show Pop Idol, released a sanitized, polished version with smooth backing vocals and a soul pop twist. The backlash was instant. Ray Manzarek, the keyboardist and architect of the Doors' sound, called the cover disrespectful, accusing the industry of packaging a transcultural song in commercial cellophane. He added, visibly annoyed, the original was pure fire. Will Young turned it into a scented candle. To the surviving members of the band, it was a total betrayal of the song's psychedelic and countercultural essence. Number 11, Anarchy in the UK by Sex Pistols. Anarchy in the UK was the battle cry of British punk in 1976. With its gritty sound, provocative message, and Johnny Rotten's snarl, the Sex Pistols set the scene on fire with a track that didn't just challenge the system, it spat right in its face.